What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains. I'm Jewel Schmitz, accompanied by James Jackson and Jake Galley. This past week in sports, the Warriors win games 3 and 4 in Portland to sweep the Blazers and head it to their 5th consecutive NBA Finals.
As they defeat the Blazers here in overtime and advance to their 5th consecutive NBA Finals.
Okay.
The Raptors rally back and win both their home games to even the Eastern Conference Finals at 2 games apiece. Brooks Koepka wins his 2nd consecutive PGA championship, and Deontay Wilder defends his heavyweight title in a first-round knockout. Here's a fact straight at you. The last 3 seasons, the Rockets are 5-8 in the postseason against the Warriors. The rest of the NBA is 5-36. Does this mean the real NBA Finals was in the 2nd round, or does the winner of Bucks Raptors have a chance?
Why are you looking at me? Why are you looking at me?
That was a goofy thing to say, because it's your GM who is saying these things.
Right, I'm kind of not proud that we're boasting, like, look, we're the team that lost to the Warriors the least amount of times. Like, we still...
The Houston Clowns, that's what you are.
We told you so.
Whatever. Both of our teams hit the same exact spot in the playoffs. My team went a little bit deeper. But that doesn't make me feel any better to say that the real NBA Finals was in the 2nd round, because then, like, that... Would we lose a consolation finals? Like, that doesn't make me feel any better about it. But to answer that question, like, I really don't see how any team in the Eastern Conference stands a chance against this Warriors team.
They're a powerhouse, absolute powerhouse.
Especially the way they've unlocked their play without Kevin Durant. I just don't see it.
Right, and, I mean, the Warriors, without KD, they come into this series, and even with KD, there probably wasn't a chance of the Blazers winning. Without KD, they go and sweep the series. The Blazers, in 3 of the 4 games, held 15-point leads, weren't able to hold any of them. It was inevitable. The Warriors are literally Thanos. They are inevitable. They were able to come back and win all those games.
They're also the first to go to 5 straight finals since the Boston Celtics, and I think they've proven that they can function without KD. I think we talked about last episode that, obviously KD is a huge asset to the team. That's no question about it. But they have proven that they are such a powerhouse. Once again, they can thrive without him.
I mean, they get back to their grassroots, and when they get back to their grassroots, and we talked about it before, it's the team that went 73-9 and a team that's unguardable. You hit it on the nose last episode when you talked about Draymond Green, and it just came alive even more in games 3 and 4 in Portland.
Yeah, he scored 14 points in 10 of 16 playoff games so far after only scoring more than 14 in 10 of 66 regular season games, but it's not really even the scoring. It's his ability to work off Steph, as I said. Him in the pick and roll, he had a triple-double in a couple games, was just beastly for them. And not even on the offensive side. Then you look on the defensive side, which he's never left. He went out and called himself the greatest defender of all time. And honestly, to be honest with
no,
you might be right, James.
No. Not that, maybe the greatest in this era of this stretch of Warriors dominance, maybe, but the greatest ever. No, he has a huge impact on the defensive end.
Who would you say is the greatest defender ever? It's hard to quantify. It is, because there's different things you can do on the court. For me, it's probably Hakeem Olajuwon.
Hakeem is where I was going to go.
He could just do everything for you. But in the same respect, Draymond Green, like I was having this argument, I'm not going to call it a conversation, of who was the better player if they both retired right now, Dwight Howard or Draymond Green.
Oh,
Dwight Howard has more...
I forgot about Dwight Howard. Yeah, right now. I love Dwight Howard.
3-time Defensive Player of the Year, very good defender in his own right, carried his team to the finals, but like, he's not the same level of defender as Draymond Green is. He's defending 5s. Draymond Green defends 1 through 5.
So Draymond Green did something very interesting over the past week. He, in one of his press conferences, said that the team does need Boogie and does need KD. He has been charging the hoop nonstop and was really aggressive in this series to date. He's also been on a diet since March, losing about 25 pounds, which really helps him blossom without KD and kind of cover the entire court.
I mean, look, we see it with Joel Embiid, right? Like, got to be healthy. Your body's got to be able to play, through these long stretches and through these elongated periods, especially when you're going into May and June playing basketball. Your body's got to be able to sustain it. A diet helps that. But to your point about Draymond Green guarding 1 through 5, that's where I might put him above the likes of Hakeem Olajuwon and Dwight Howard. It's because not only his ability to actually guard those players, but what it does for the Warriors on the offensive end is when Steph and Klay aren't exerting that much energy on the defensive end trying to guard the top scorers on the other team, it's how they get going on the offensive end when they're not trying to do that on the defensive end.
And Draymond's stats in the series, 16.5 points per game, 11.8 rebounds, 8.8 assists, and now here's the defensive end, 2.3 steals and 2.8 blocks. That's astounding. Like, that really is a stat sheet stuffer right there. And to be honest, when KD during the regular season and even last year in the playoffs, it kind of seemed like Draymond Green was an afterthought on this team. There was rumors that him and Steve Kerr and the team wasn't getting along. They might try and move on from him. And now it seems like they can't live without him.
No, I mean, for the Warriors to try, or anyone try to say there weren't any kind of locker room turmoil during the regular season is kind of a lie. You could see it. I mean, Steve Kerr got caught on camera saying, "I'm tired of Draymond's shit." Like, he got caught saying it.
Steve Kerr wears his heart on his sleeve. I think he's a great leader, very intelligent.
The whole team, besides Klay Thompson, really wears their heart on their sleeve. And when you have such an emotional player like Draymond Green, not all emotions are good emotions, right? He's going to let tempers fly, and sometimes people aren't going to agree with him. But what he brings for the Warriors roster, and like, people gotta understand, it really pains me to say stuff like this because I've hung my hat on being a Warriors hater, a Draymond Green hater, a Steph hater, and they're just making it like really, really difficult to do that lately.
Speaking of Steph Curry, obviously has the winning mindset here, and it's infectious to his environment and his teammates, and his impact on the game is so unique. I don't know if I've ever seen him play better, to be honest. He had 36.5 points average in the entire series, and I thought it was a little interesting how he missed that free throw in the fourth quarter in overtime. It's the first time in
his brother tried
to
jinx him and got him, right?
Yeah,
he doesn't miss those very often.
And this is why I'm going to disagree with Draymond when he says we need Boogie, we need KD. I think he's trying to say that for rapport reasons and trying not to just completely have his locker room separated. But like, it's clear that they don't need him when they don't have, especially Kevin Durant on the offensive end. Like, this is the player that gets unlocked, and it's Steph Curry.
Well, that is true. Steph was totally unleashed, but in this, they might not have needed KD for this series against the Blazers, but for the battles upcoming, when you have Giannis running around unimpeded, like, I guess you stick Draymond on him, but Draymond's giving up 6 inches. Like, who knows how tall Giannis is?
And we'll talk about it later, but so is Kawhi, and we see Kawhi can put the clamps on Giannis when it comes down to it.
They're both very good defenders.
Look, the Warriors don't need KD and Boogie to get out the West. The Warriors needed KD for one reason, and that was to beat LeBron James on the other side. Without LeBron James on the other side, Kevin Durant is not needed anymore.
And I'll scale that back. They didn't, and this is like what you'll see bounced around on the internet, is like they didn't even need KD to be on their team. They didn't even need KD to win. They just needed him to not be on the other team.
Yeah.
They needed him to not be on the Thunder.
Internet and KD, I know he called out Chris
Broussard
over Twitter. He was very emotionally invested and protective of his ego over the past week. He randomly responds to people on social media. I think it's a little odd. I think it kind of just justifies why he wants to leave too. I feel like he feels like he's not getting the recognition that he deserves on such a powerhouse team.
He did it to himself. I don't care.
Kevin, I was your biggest fan. So were they.
Hey, look, everybody! Kevin's back! Kevin! We love you, Kevin! Kevin's leave!
Yeah, that is really like a, you sucks to suck, you played yourself type situation. Like, what did you think was going to happen when you go to the best team of all time after they just came back 3-1 against you? Like, he's a goofy for that one.
It's a collaborative effort. It's not a competitive effort when you have that many alphas on one team.
Yeah.
It's funny, like someone's just straight up lying in
Between
that.
the Broussard
and Kevin Durant. Chris Broussard said me and KD have heated exchanges going back and forth through text. Kevin Durant quote tweets in and says, all cap, you don't have my phone number.
Listen,
someone's lying.
Two sides to every story. I strongly believe that. I think a little bit of both are probably true.
How is it both? It's either Kevin Durant's lying about not texting Chris Broussard, or Chris Broussard is lying about.
Factual.
I mean, that's.
Or Chris Broussard is just texting someone who isn't Kevin Durant,
thinking that it's
having
Kevin
long
Durant.
conversations with some random dude.
Is also very. It's also like very, very possible. And whoever is that Kevin Durant catfish, I give you all the credit in the world because you really just tricked Chris Broussard right there.
Yeah, but on the other side of things, the Blazers get knocked out of the playoffs here in a sweeping fashion. Damian Lillard was not nearly as good as he was, even in the round prior against Denver, which he also took a step back from that OKC showdown with Russ. You have to give it to him, though. He played through separated ribs, reportedly, which is an extremely hard thing to do anytime you're playing with injury.
In any sport, you can't play with
where you're not going to be playing 100%, that goes without saying. But it was just a case of Portland being overmatched.
And look, even though Damian Lillard didn't have the series he had against OKC, Myers Leonard made a good point. Like, Damian Lillard might have done all that he could. Look, there's a certain point when you're an NBA star that when you're getting doubled and blitzed off pick and rolls, that the ball's gotta leave your hand.
Right.
Like, you gotta look to the other players on your team to make plays. He's coming off that high screen roll and immediately seeing two defenders, and not just two defenders, seeing Klay Thompson and most likely Draymond Green, two of the best on-ball and elite defenders, especially wing defenders and perimeter defenders in the league. So he's coming off of that, and instead of trying to force his way around it or through it or over it or whatever, he's going to have to give that ball up and trust somebody else to make a play. And on a consistent basis, that next person wasn't always making a play. And if your star player can't will you and beat the Warriors, I'm sorry, your role players aren't going to beat the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, just collectively, even with the Blazers, they were ahead by double digits in 3 of these games and still couldn't seem to pull it off. They're the first team in the last 20 postseasons to blow a 15-point plus lead 3 times in a series.
Yeah.
3 times.
That's, like we said, without KD. Like, it really all... And someone who we haven't even mentioned is all-star when he's healthy, DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah.
Neither of those guys played, and it was still nowhere close. Like, that's really the competitive imbalance that the Warriors bring by getting all these guys.
So when the Warriors have Kevin Durant, let me tell you, the tendency that happens when the Warriors are down 15 is we have the second best player in the world, probably the best scorer in the world.
Let him work.
Let him work. If we're down 15, KD, go get us a bucket. KD, go get us 5 buckets to get us back into this game. We'll work around you. When they don't have KD, they just don't lose their brand of basketball at all. Down 15, up 15, it doesn't matter. The ball is going to move fluidly. We're going to find the best shot. We're going to get the best offense going. And, like, basketball is a game of runs. So if you're up 15, at some point, the Blazers are going to go in a shooting stretch where they're not hitting everything.
And that's your
where they're going to
chance.
go in a lull. And when that happens, here comes the Warriors. Like you said, they're inevitable. When they stick to their brand of basketball, which they do all the time without KD, really no lead is safe. I mean, especially for the best three-point shooting team of all time, 4 possessions and the game is over.
Yeah, and I thought what was super captivating about that Game 4 was Myers Leonard, his eruption. He went for 30 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, a block, and a steal.
And 2 mighty chest pounds.
A thunderous poster
Oh.
and a mighty chest pound, as you said. He's a guy who really was I'm not going to say nowhere to be found, like he's just a role player for them, but on that night he was unstoppable. 12 of 16 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3. There was a point in the game where they were doing pick and rolls, and they would double Myers Leonard and leave Dame Lillard open, wide open.
Well, Damian Lillard wasn't having the outside shooting performance he was having in the OKC series. So they were saying, look, you force Myers Leonard to make the right play with the basketball when getting blitzed. A point guard knows what to do and has the good instincts when you're getting doubled to make the right play. A center doesn't always have that. So if you go and double and blitz Myers Leonard, there's a good chance he turns the ball over. And to his credit, he didn't. And a lot of people also wanted to try to come at CJ McCollum for maybe not stepping up in Damian Lillard's absence. Again, another player who really kind of did all that he could. There's a ceiling that some players have. CJ McCollum really isn't that take over a game or a series.
Well,
he did it a little bit against Denver.
He did it a little bit, but it's a totally different monster when you're working with Golden State. Really, it'll be interesting to see Damian Lillard up for a Supermax contract. That'll be $191 million. He said he's going.
You say that so casually.
So casually.
Oh, just 191
Just
mil.
191 mil. Nothing too heavy.
Maybe
but
I'll go to McDonald's with that. Maybe I'll go to the drive-thru at Burger
He
King.
said multiple times that he wants to stay in Portland. That this is where he wants to grow. Like, I think it's a no-brainer.
Does Damian Lillard deserve a Supermax?
From Portland? Yeah. I mean, he's been their franchise for however long he's been in the league.
Him.
I mean, really, maybe you could say, okay, they had LaMarcus Aldridge, but really since Aldridge left, he's been their sole provider.
Since 2014, when he hit that shot over James Harden to take the Rockets out of the playoffs, Damian Lillard has been the center of the Portland Trailblazers franchise. I think he deserves a Supermax or really deserves whatever money he can get out of Portland, but at the same time, if he really wants to try to attract big-time free agents, I think it might be in his best interest to maybe take a little bit of a pay cut or a pay decrease.
It'll be
and see what they can go out and get in free agency.
It will be very
after this year, Portland has started to become a good destination for free agents to come
Absolutely.
to.
And look, they did all this without their third best player,
Without
Nurkic.
Nurkic, yeah.
And honestly, you could possibly argue that he is the second best player, depending on the game. I mean, obviously, CJ really came out and showed out and solidified himself as the second best player. But during the regular season, Nurkic was a beast. And as you mentioned, it's a very ripe year for free agents. There's a lot of big guys out there and who will be changing destinations. Maybe Portland works their way into the
Guys, I think what I would like to move on to next would be the possible finals matchup that is ahead of us in the near future between the Warriors or the Bucks. What do we think? Or the Warriors and the Raptors?
What gets a better series, in my opinion, is Warriors-Bucks. I think the Bucks match.
Why do you think that?
Because the Bucks are a better three-point shooting team. If you're going to try to match what the Warriors do, you're going to have to shoot well from the outside. Also, the Bucks are a little bit longer on the defensive end than the Raptors are, able to defend the perimeter a little bit better.
That's fair, but what I'll say is this. The Raptors, between Kawhi, Lowry, Gasol, these are all guys that have been entangled in big pieces of playoff series, important playoff series before. When you look at the Bucks, pretty much everyone on their roster is going through this for the first time. Giannis.
George Hill went to the finals last year.
Oh, is George Hill really going to be the one to combat the
Okay,
Warriors?
he has experience.
No, and
man.
he's been good. To your point, he's been phenomenal. And I think the later you go, the more that experience and continuity is important. And while the Raptors don't necessarily have continuity, they do have experience. And between Gasol and Leonard, Kawhi, if he would have stayed healthy, what was it, last year when he got hurt? 2 years ago when Pachulia stepped up? It was 2 years ago. If he would have stayed healthy, like they were beating up on, obviously it's only one half of game one, but they were beating up on the Warriors. Gasol with the grit and grind Grizzlies as well.
Before going into last night, I personally thought that the Raptors would be the less dominant team for the Warriors to play. But after their performance last night, it's got me thinking. They got some back-to-back wins. Why change that dynamic? Half-court defense looks on point. Finally seeing some contribution from team members to back up Kawhi, that kind of strengthened numbers there. The Raptors went 17-5 this year without Kawhi, and sometimes it makes me think that people really do underestimate that ability of the Raptors team without Kawhi.
And well, what a playoff series comes down to is your role players. Like the stars are going to be, for the most part, the stars in the playoffs. That's what they've earned their billing. But your role players have to be able to step up and play well in hostile environments. The Bucks role players play better on the road than the Raptors role players. Like you see players like Norman Powell and Fred VanVleet go completely silent when they go on the road, as opposed to George Hill, Chris Middleton, and company, who may not have their best games on the road, but don't go completely flat and go silent. I also think the Bucks play to the Warriors brand of basketball better than the Raptors play to the Warriors brand of basketball. Because at this point, the Warriors are so good that you might be playing their brand of basketball, that up and down, high-tempo, fast-paced brand of basketball, the Raptors like to slow the game down. And against the Warriors, you just can't do that all the time. If you try to, they might run past you.
I mean, what I'm most interested in is seeing, like, I do think the Bucks team creates more matchup problems for the Warriors. When you look, I mean, Giannis in and of himself is a walking mismatch. You put Draymond and you're giving up a ton of height, or you put KD and he can really wear KD down to the point where on the other side of the ball, a not fully 100% KD might be a little bit more tired. So I don't know. I mean, obviously this series is far from over, which I thought it was.
I thought it was
the
over.
Raptors last night able to rout the Bucks at 120 to, or what was the score? It was 118. No, 120 to 102. I was correct. And in that game, I mean, it was a game where the Raptors were able to take off, and anytime the Bucks got close, they were just able to edge that lead a little bit further.
Yeah, and Joel, you hit it on the head last week when you said this series is going to become a home court advantage series, which, to be honest, I didn't believe. I thought the Raptors would win one of their two games at home. I didn't believe that they'd win both of them. Game 3 was kind of weird. It was all up in the air. But I didn't think they'd get out of Toronto tying this series up 2-2. And they did. And credit to the Toronto Raptors.
What stood out to me last night was Serge Ibaka.
Yeah, absolutely.
He definitely came through last night with big shots on the boards and making all of his other shots. And I think he gets the crowd hyped, too. To me, he's kind of like the Joel Embiid of the Raptors.
Well, he's got to do dirty work down there. Like, they cannot get... When the Raptors get out-rebounded, we saw it in the Sixers series. When the Raptors get out-rebounded, their game plan falls apart. And the biggest part of that, not getting out-rebounded, is Serge Ibaka being active on the boards and on the low post. If he can win the rebounding matchup with who he's who he's faced off with, and if he can play great defense, get some shot blocks down there, that energizes them on the defensive end.
Yeah, and Kawhi finally looked a little human last night in a couple senses. He only had 19 points on 6 of 13 shooting, but also there's many times during the game where he would do something, especially the one poster dunk over Giannis, he comes down and is limping the other way. It is that right quad that he seems to be favoring, which is what hurt him when he was on the Spurs. Even before the year that he sat out, he was dealing with stuff with his right quad. That's another thing to me. If I'm looking for like the best finals possible, I'd rather see the Bucks Warriors, because by the time that Kawhi gets there, if this goes another 2-3 games, he might be even more badly injured to the point where he's not 100%.
And the person who stepped up when Kawhi came back down to earth was Kyle Lowry, which people have been waiting for the all-star Kyle Lowry to really assert himself in these playoffs. And Reggie Miller said it last night, like, everyone in Toronto, please welcome Serge Ibaka and Kyle Lowry to this year's playoffs, because they have finally stepped up. Kyle Lowry is now averaging 20 points per game on 72% true shooting percentage this series. That's something after game 1 of the first round of the playoffs I didn't think anyone was expecting to say. Kyle Lowry really stepped it up, and he's doing things that got Kyle Lowry to his name. You know what I mean? Making those hustle plays, making good decisions with the basketball, not trying to do too much and get beside himself. When he just puts his head down and goes to the rim and tries to create something out of nothing, he kind of just throws the ball up in the air and doesn't do anything with it. But when Kyle Lowry stays within himself and plays the good kind of brand basketball that really got started when he was at Nova, he's a really good player, and we saw it last night and in Game 3.
Guys, speaking of Kyle Lowry, I read a really interesting article this week done by Lori Ewing of the Canadian Press. She wrote an article this past week on how Jay Wright uses Lowry as an example for his team. Jay Wright says the tougher the games, the better the lessons. Jay Wright also pointed out that Lowry kind of struggled with his authority, with authority in general, his freshman year at Villanova. And he kind of looks to Lowry as almost a showcase to his teams. Lowry on the offseason will go and practice at Nova. He'll be there 6:45, 7 a.m. in the morning. And he's using him as kind of an example of how disciplined you need to be. How disciplined you need to be as a player to amount to some way, at some point in your life if you ever want to be in the NBA. And I think it's great.
Yeah, Lowry is a hard worker. There's no two ways about it. Like, that guy's struggled a lot at different points in his career, but he's always been able to fight back, turn it around. Like, last year, past couple years, he struggled in the playoffs, is able to come back, make the All-Star team, and now, after he struggled in this postseason, has really flipped the switch. Against the Sixers, he only shot 25.6% from 3. This series, he's shooting 48.4% from 3. He went from incredibly below average to far above average, and that's him. You heard him say, look, I need to start giving Kawhi more. I need to be more of a help to Kawhi, and he has been.
And to his credit, he like you said, he definitely has been. And last year in the playoffs, he has a little bit of a different role than he has this year in the playoffs. Kawhi likes to handle the ball and likes to be the primary ball handler on offense, where DeMar DeRozan last year liked to play off the ball, get swing passes, get a screen, and work off of a shot that way. This year it's kind of flip-flopped, and Kyle Lowry has to be that person who gets more of the plays off the ball, which I'm telling you, a point guard doesn't like to do. A point guard is a primary ball handler, but in today's NBA it's kind of positionless basketball, so your best player is mainly your primary ball handler. So Kyle Lowry has adjusted to that beautifully. When you have great defensive teams, especially teams who have multiple players who can defend multiple positions like the Sixers do, you're going to struggle like that. But when you get a favorable matchup against maybe an Eric Bledsoe, who is a very good defender in his right, just won first-team All-NBA. When you get a favorable matchup maybe against George Hill or somebody like that, then you get a little bit better and a little bit more open looks.
Well, speaking of Kawhi, too, he only took 13 shots last night, and I thought that was real interesting. I know he got hurt.
He's hurt.
We were just talking about how Kawhi is human. Remember last week I said,
he's a machine.
Kawhi's not from this earth. He's not
machine.
from this planet. But he did get hurt, and in his post-game interview he said, no excuses. No excuses.
Even his coach, Nick Nurse, said he went to him and he said, "How you doing, Kawhi?" And Kawhi said, "Like, I'm hurting, man. Like, my body hurts." Right. But then he's immediately right after said, "It's the playoffs. Like, everybody's body's hurt." Yeah, man.
No, he is built like a robot. He's a Spurs robot that is now on the Raptors. So, but back to the Bucks really quick. I think that what it comes down to, and as you said previously, is the role players. And on at least last night in Game 4. That bench was monumental for the Raptors in that game. Norman Powell chipped in. He gave them 18 points. Van Vliet gave him 13 points. Ibaka, as you mentioned, 17 points, 13 rebounds off the bench in like 24 minutes is crazy.
But all players that go bye-bye on the road.
Well, right, and that is why, as Jules said, it's a home series. If you're home, and a lot of your guys who might not be stars necessarily, but are good players, both of these teams are filled with them, those guys are elevated at home, and the inverse for when they're on the road.
Well, and what I thought was going to happen was whoever's bench won the matchup was going to win the series. And it's not necessarily in particular
Right,
who's
it's not really the
who's
bench.
it's who's role players. You still got role players on the starting lineup. I would consider Danny Green a role player. I would consider, George Hill, Eric Bledsoe role players. Those are guys who start.
And I do want to make a point, too. Like, with that home court advantage comes the fan base with it.
Yeah,
And
energy behind
I
it,
think
yeah.
the energy that Toronto has, especially with Drake sitting on the side, getting in people's heads, I think that's so influential on the game. I really do. Look at Philadelphia. We're some of the most
Passionate.
feared fan base.
Right.
It's just unreal.
You guys are
but
idiots.
I'm not saying Milwaukee's not, but last night they weren't in Milwaukee. They were in
Right.
Toronto, and I think their fan base is so gun-ho for that team, and I think it's amazing.
I mean, when you got Drake jumping around on the sideline, you got Turban Bull doing his thing. Like then, Toronto's a hostile place to play.
Yeah, and
through.
we
That's what
were
it is.
saying this earlier that the stars are going to do their star things, right? Middleton and Giannis last night combined 20 for 32 shooting from the field. The rest of the team goes 17 for 48. So when those role players don't step up, and it's still in a close game, like imagine if, close-ish game until the last minutes. But imagine if they got production from one of those players. Like Nikola Mirotic has not shown up yet in this series at all. Looked terrible last night.
That's true. That's right.
Yeah. What really I think deserves the most props out of all of the people who we've touched on is Nick Nurse, because what he's done not only on the defensive end, which he's put more Kawhi on Giannis. Giannis clearly looked like he was hesitant going to the rim. He would get to the rim and then throw it out the other way. And then also on offense, his ability to kind of lean more so on these Van Vliet characters, on the Ibakas. In the last two games, the Raptors have 60 assists on 81 made field goals. That's like astronomical right there. They're sharing the ball, and on the defensive end, they're just working as a team.
And it's crazy that someone with the height and stature of Giannis is still scared to take on Kawhi in the
Because
paint
he has active
one-on-one.
hands. It's like you can be as long as you want. If you can't put that ball on the floor without fear of him coming in and grabbing it clean, then there's nothing you're going to be able
And
to do.
Giannis doesn't have the tightest handle. He's tall, so that dribbles high, and that's prime time for Kawhi to swipe. It's when this series goes back to Milwaukee, and now it's more interesting because neither team has consecutive games at home now. Now it's 1-1-1. So now it's going to be very, very interesting to see how teams pull together, because let Toronto mess around and swipe this Game 5 in Milwaukee, and the series really gets turned on its head. Like that's very interesting. I don't know if I'm expecting that to happen, but if it does, that's something that is very, very interesting and something to look at.
Guys, you know what I want to talk about now? I want to talk about some baseball.
You've been waiting to talk about baseball.
I have been waiting to talk about baseball. I love my Phillies. I love baseball.
I love
Tis
baseball
the season.
too. It's going to dominate the summer, so we might as well dip our toe into it now, right?
Very
Yeah,
excited for
might
it.
as well. Good.
Here's a very interesting baseball fact.
Okay.
The .065 difference in batting average between first place Cody Bellinger and second place Jorge Polanco is the same difference between second Polanco and 56th place Eduardo Escobar.
That's nuts. Dude, that is pretty nuts. Bellinger's killing it this year.
He is. I mean, he did it. He did this last year and his rookie year, right? He came out the gate so hot, and then after the All-Star break, kind of tailed it down, and then absolutely went silent in both of those
talk
World
to me
Series.
in the postseason. That is true.
Yeah,
Like, come on,
both
man.
of those World Series went completely flat. I mean, to his defense, he had to play the Astros and then the Red Sox in the World Series. Like for
he's a young kid.
For a young player having to go up against like Verlander, Keuchel, and then Price and Sale, like that's hard. But I mean,
He's
Cody
learning.
Bellinger. Let's not shy or take anything away from Cody Bellinger and the Dodgers as a whole. What they're doing right now, the Dodgers are one of the best teams in baseball.
Well, let me ask you, who's had the best start in the MLB, player and team-wise, to you?
What I'm gonna say is, I know Cody Bellinger is pretty much leading every major statistical category on the offensive end right now, but I gotta look to Christian Yelich to have the best start out the gates in the MLB. Maybe because I just don't want to talk about Cody Bellinger anymore. But I also don't want to really talk about Christian Yelich. Like, I'm not a huge Milwaukee Brewers fan. The Phillies kind of butt heads with them all the time. But Christian Yelich, as a two-hitter, what he's doing in that lineup, hitting the ball in all places of the field, getting on base, hitting home runs, scoring, winning RBIs, and having great defensive presence, like, Christian Yelich is defending that NL MVP very well.
Yeah, he's leading the league in home runs with 19 when we're recording this. He is an absolute steal from those Miami Marlins. Like, when the Marlins kind of, gather their eggs and look around, I have to think that Derek Jeter's kicking himself for blowing everything up.
Well, think about who the Marlins had at one point. Let's run through it. Giancarlo Stanton, Christian Yelich, JT Realmuto, Marcelo Ozuna, D. Gordon.
D. Gordon,
Like,
oh
they
my
had
gosh.
How they were
And
so bad.
RIP, Jose Fernandez.
That
was
pulled it all
terrible.
together, yeah.
Right. But, yeah, I mean, back to Yelich, Milwaukee, they're succeeding, and he has been really a boon for them.
Who's really standing out to me right now are the Texas Rangers. Hunter Pence in particular.
Former Philly. I can get with
Former
that.
Philly. Last year he only played in 97 games because he hurt his thumb. Year before he played a full year, but he was so-so. He only played in 389 out of the 648 regular season games with the Giants from 2015 to 18. He's hitting the ball really hard now. He's finally healthy. I don't know how many people really know this. He actually went to work with Doug Latta one-on-one. For those of you who don't know who Doug Latta is, he teaches hitting at an industrial park in California, what he calls the ballpark in California.
Of course he does.
That's the most baseball thing I've ever heard.
There's
in my life.
only, yeah, I know. It's like, come on, dude, be a little more great. Give us something more insightful. You're like, come on now. He has no affiliation with the MLB, though, this guy. No affiliation. He does it out of the goodness of his heart. He genuinely loves the game. He has done work with LA Dodgers, Justin Turner, and San Francisco Giants, Mac Williamson as well. And I just think it's really cool that he's tapped into Doug Latta, and it's really improved his game.
And
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
not only with Pence, but also on that Ranger team is Joey Gallo is absolutely mashing the baseball right now. He was a piece that was almost in the trade package, too. We mentioned the Phillies. Almost sent to the Phillies in exchange for Cole Hamels. That ended up not happening, and I'm sure they're glad. Right now, he is absolutely crushing the ball all over the diamond. He's a good young prospect as well.
What is very surprising to me is the first to worst act that the Boston Red Sox are doing right now. Like, mightily struggling, not really due to any injury, but just due to just getting out of the gate slow and a slow start. And not really a team that you would think would have a championship hangover due to how much success the Red Sox and just the whole city
You know,
of
when I
Boston
think about
has.
the Red Sox, besides the movie The Town, I love that movie. That's a banging movie.
That is a
If
great
anybody,
movie.
and The Departed, and you know what? I kind
All
of have
Boston
a
movies.
little heart for Boston, aside from the Celtics. Screw them. But when I think of the Boston Red Sox, I think of, hey, you know Big Papi.
Big Papi. My guy, won't be a Boston Red Sox legend forever.
They'll turn it around. Look, there's a lot of games in the baseball season. Boston right now
We're
is
in May.
like around,
We're in May.
We're
There's
around
time.
500
There's
right
time.
now,
Yeah.
actually. They have enough good players.
Right, they're back up to like 12th in the MLB standings, which I think 2 weeks ago they were one of the worst teams. So the fact that they're already climbing up should be scary but that AL East, as always, is really good. The Yankees are surging as one of the best teams in baseball again. That Clint Frazier and
sick of them.
Gleyber Flores are doing what they normally do. The Toronto Blue Jays are good again all of a sudden.
Yep.
The Rays are one of the best teams in baseball. Like, the AL East is really good. But a player who's making a splash on the scene, for some people say good, some people say bad, I like to say good, is my man Tim Anderson, shortstop for the Chicago White Sox, kind of the leader of the let the kids play movement. This whole thing that's going down, the MLB's new mantra, him and like Javi Baez, who killed the Phillies last night on a walk-off. But Tim Anderson right now is having a year, batting .323, 8 home runs, 24 ribbies. Not a whole lot of power coming out of her, and you can see him in his power numbers, but he's just a solid player and a flashy and a very dynamic
That's the
player.
thing.
I love it.
I mean, you say he only has 8 home runs, and if you were to just look on social media, I would think that this guy's like Barry Bonds. Like, every time he hits a home run, the bat gets flipped up in the air. He turns around, he's screaming.
He has 2 walk-off home runs under his belt this season.
Right, and that's the 8 home runs. It's decent pop from the shortstop position, especially when he's batting around .320. It's his 3rd year in the league, and he is someone who has become kind of a controversial figure, as you said. All that bat flipping and all that some people
Rah-rah,
call it,
yeah.
rah-rah, taunting, whatever you want to call it, is directly against old traditional baseball, and you know that battle that's going on.
Like the baseball traditionalists and purists are gonna things change, man. Like baseball started in what 1840 or
Baseball's
something like
not
that.
the same as it used to
No,
be. And
no
people
sport
need to
is.
learn that
No sport
the
is.
only constant is change.
Yeah.
I heard that the other day and I loved it,
Bars.
but it's true. If you're not adapting to the environment, if you're not adapting to the media, I'm pulling out some Gary Vee right now.
Whoa.
I'm with it right now. I'm pulling out some Gary
Do
Vee
you all
right
realize
now.
the bar Jewel just dropped?
That was
on
crazy.
that? You know what I mean?
It's
But
true. That was like super like Buddha of me.
But it's true. Look, and I don't know if anyone really our age group really subscribes to that, like to keep the baseball in its purest form. But I don't know what you expect when you ask players to dedicate pretty much their entire year, especially if you play baseball. Like your season is 6-7 months long, your regular season, let alone if you go to the postseason. You're asking for them to dedicate so much time, energy, money, and resources into not only getting better, but then to play this game just for you to watch them,
Right.
For the benefit of them, and then ask them to not show much emotion and much heart out on the field. Like, I don't get that. So I'm fully behind Tim Anderson. I was a middle infielder when I played too, so I really resonate with him. That's my guy right there.
Yeah.
Tim Anderson, keep doing what you're doing, man. We watch it.
Changing things.
We watch him.
All right, guys, speak some facts to me.
I'm ready.
Damian Lillard said, "I'll look at the film of the Warriors series and critique myself off of that. But I think overall, I had a great postseason." Is he speaking facts?
Dame, I get what you're saying, my man. And I defended him earlier and said he's pretty much done all that he could do. If you look at just the OKC and Golden State series, I probably would be able to get behind him. But I can't say that he's speaking facts because that Denver series really put a stain on his postseason. He had a good one. He didn't have a bad one. I wouldn't say he had a great one.
I don't know. I think that for the first time in his career, he's really had. I mean, they got to the Western Conference Finals. That's their best since 2000. And he was a huge part of that. He's been getting better every year. I think that this is probably his most successful postseason
It's his
yet.
deepest postseason. I mean, last year they got swept. I mean,
How can't you come off feeling better about it?
because you got swept again.
He had a
Like,
separated rib. I don't know
come
how
on,
much-
we're making excuses for people now. He didn't have a great postseason. I'm not gonna say he had a bad one, but to say he had a great one, to sit here and say like overall I had a great postseason, there's nothing to scoff at me about.
So we'll settle on good.
Okay, sure.
Good postseason.
All right, guys, Magic Johnson
Now
said,
this guy again. Here we go.
Magic Johnson said, when being asked about LeBron James in LA, it's going to happen. He's going to win that chip in LA. Is he speaking facts?
No, because if he thought that, he probably wouldn't have left or would have left in a different manner. Like, I mean, it's one thing to say it, but to actually believe it, he tweets out these big overviews of like, ooh, Steph Curry had 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Good job, Steph. I know you're watching those series, Magic. I know that you see what the Warriors are doing even without KD. Like, come on.
Here's what I'll say, Jake. You sat with me in 2016 and watched LeBron come back down 3-1 against that same Warriors team. I'm not going to sit here and definitively say LeBron is going to win a chip in Los Angeles, but I will say to you the same thing that we all said in 2016. If there was a man to do it, it would be LeBron James.
Hate to say it, hate to see it, but I actually agree with you there.
Thank you.
All right, the NBA on ESPN tweeted, Drake might just be the NBA's new Spike Lee. Are they speaking facts?
Jake, you're going to cringe, and you're already cringing when I'm saying this, but like people got to lay off Drake, man. Like I get
I like
that.
Drake.
I like him too. Like I get that he missed a playoff game, but Drake is on a whole Drake is on a different level than Spike Lee is right now. But on terms of super fan, on terms of supporting your team and doing just as much for the city of Toronto and for the Raptors organization, like Drake might be the NBA's new Spike Lee. If it's not Drake, who is it?
Well, right, maybe he's the new Spike Lee. I don't know. Spike Lee, here's what digs at me with Drake, because I agree he's doing a good job as a fan getting under the skin of opponents. He is the biggest profile out of anyone there. Of course, whatever he does is going to be amplified. However, I do not agree that he should be touching the coach, be touching players.
No, I agree with that too,
There
but
was
that's not-
there was a point in Game 4 where Toronto hit a big shot and wasn't a timeout, wasn't commercial break, and he goes up and massages Nick Nurse I was uncomfortable watching it. I can only
That's
imagine.
like super distracting to just like
just
everybody
weird.
involved.
And,
Like everybody.
And it's funny because Nick Nurse stays staring at the Jumbotron when he does it, but you can tell
He does.
Nick Nurse had a what the hell kind of moment. Like, what, bro? Like, what are you doing?
He's like
Security.
biting his bottom lip, like, what is going on?
But look, Spike Lee was front row. Drake is front row. Spike Lee gets in the head of players like Spike Lee and Reggie Miller had a little feud.
Of course.
Drake and Giannis had a little feud. Drake and Embiid had a little thing going on. Like, come on now.
No,
like,
that's good.
Drake is
I don't-
doing what Spike Lee did.
I don't have a problem.
And look, the Knicks never won a title when Spike Lee was there. Like, so if Toronto does win a title while Drake is there, he might surpass him.
All right, guys. Andrea Iguodala said, Curry is the second best player ever, only behind MJ. Is he speaking facts?
That's so ridiculous of him to say, especially after getting a 40 ball put on him every night by the guy
Who is the best player?
Right, who is the best player in front of MJ and in front of Curry, LeBron James. Yeah, I mean, he's saying it to pipe up his team. I mean, all right, good for you, Iggy. Like, what did you gain from it? What do you gain from saying that?
Smoking the finest of dopes.
Right, like it must be good Cali weed over there. or
That's what
something.
I'm saying.
What the
That's
hell?
what I don't know. He doesn't even like gain anything from saying that. It's just a wrong statement. And like since he said it, have you heard anyone come out and back him up? Like I think he said it and went back in the locker room, and all the Warriors are like, "Bro,
Why'd you say that?
Yeah.
We have to play him next
we,
year.
you know, we still have to pay LeBron. Like, why would you say that? Look, this is why it makes me mad when Steph Curry has a little bit of a good stretch, just a little bit of a good stretch.
People like bow down to him.
And we
Yeah,
like
I
to
know,
start
I
getting
know.
this. We forget that when Kevin Durant was here, he had a subpar playoffs through the first 5 games of the Rocket series. Steph Curry was not looking like this.
I
Now,
think
he
society-
has one good series, and now all of a sudden he's the second best player under MJ. Like,
Society,
please stop it.
especially the media, puts the Curry family on a pedestal.
It really makes
and
me sick to my
it
stomach.
adds to their ego. It adds to their just publicity in
Look,
general.
when you score
really.
34.5 or 35.5 in a series, you're going to have some asinine things said about you.
No,
That's
but it's
just how it
every
goes.
time. Like I just saw on Instagram today, people are going.
Don't do it, James.
I'm gonna do it. People are going Steph versus AI 1-on-1. Who you got? I'm never taking Steph Curry over AI. Just because 1-on-1 is purely just getting the ball in the bucket.
That's different.
I'm,
That's
not,
different.
I'm never
But
taking Steph
in
Curry
the
over
skill
AI.
of a game.
Don't make me throw something at you.
All right, guys, moving to the countdown. Number 5.
Number of consecutive NBA Finals the Warriors have made. I'm going to go ahead and I'm super early. I'm going to do it anyway. They're going to make it next year, too. There's nothing that can be changed about this. This is what I've realized in this Blazers series, that even without KD, even without Boogie, it just doesn't matter.
Do you sound like the whole world when Thanos snapped his fingers?
Yeah.
There's just nothing to do. But I will say this. Let LeBron get AD and Kyrie or whatever, Kawhi, whoever he wants to get. Let him get his 2 superstars. We're going to see if the Warriors are still big and bad next year. That's all I'll say.
All right, guys, number 4.
Number 4, I'm tired of talking about these guys. But the number of consecutive 35-point games Steph Curry has had this playoffs, he had 35 points in all 4 games of the Blazers series. Look, he's the best shooter of all time. He's one of the streakiest players of all time. Steph Curry is a great player. I will not disagree with that, but let's just pump the brakes on saying he's anything better than the best shooter of all time and a great player.
I mean,
Let's
also,
just pump it at that.
Another possible little knock against Steph is that he was being guarded by Dame, who had a separated rip. So you're not being guarded by...
And is never known as an elite defender.
Like,
Was never
look
known
what
as-
happens when Pat Beverly guarded him. A little different story.
Number 3.
The number of Boston teams to make the championship round of their sport in the last 8 months.
Title town, baby.
Oh, my gosh.
Title time.
It is disgusting. Like, listen, that little kid, I know he's out there with the sign. He's waiting to add to the sign. I see it every year when they win. I've seen X amount of championships. It just sickens me. And then Boston fans will go look you directly in the eyes with a straight face and say, oh, no, we're poor and put upon. Yeah, the NFL's out to get us, actually. Like, shut up.
Shut the up. I will laser you with alien eyes and explode your head.
And look, if I don't think any city right now cannot overtake them as title town. They clearly are. And if the Brewers win it, then it literally will just be the Celtics of the four major sports teams that haven't won a championship this year for Boston. And we have a friend, Cam, if you're listening, we have a friend, Cam Cook from Boston, who will sit here and tell us that winning championships is mundane for him now. Like, he does not feel the same
Not just him either.
after winning championships. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's the
Something very
stupidest thing.
interesting before we go on to number 2, that because we all know that Chris Long retired this week, he made a comment saying that Bill Belichick actually, we all know Bill Belichick's, he's just so talented all over the field, especially when he's coaching in practice. And Chris Long made that point this week. He said between the Patriots and the Birds, Bill Belichick was so well-rounded when he was coaching people one-on-one. He could coach the defense. He could coach the offense. And that is why they are a powerhouse team. Now moving on to number 2.
Number 2, sticking with Boston and the Patriots, the number of years Julian Edelman has just re-signed with the Patriots. Look, Julian Edelman is one of the, if not the most important pieces besides Tom Brady on the Patriots. As long as Tom Brady has a steady target to go to like Julian Edelman, the Patriots offense may not worry.
Yeah, and especially now they're adding N'Keal Harry, who can kind of replace Gronk as that jump ball target and allow Edelman to slot back in right where he's used to.
Yeah, people better get used to the Patriots. Not really going anywhere anytime soon.
Number 1.
The number of rounds Deontay Wilder needed to nearly kill Dominic Breazeale. As he said, this is the only sport that you can kill a man in the ring. He damn well tried to do it with that right straight. Oh my gosh.
And I'm interested to see if we get a Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua fight, because that'll be just raw strength versus good boxing technique. Because Deontay Wilder, there's no technique in Deontay Wilder's game. It's square straight up, and if I catch you, you're going
left,
night-night.
right. Okay, blocked it. All right, here we go. Left, right.
Read him a bedtime story, and that's that's really what he does. That's all we got time for today. It's time to go at the buzzer. Julie, got anything to say at the buzzer?
I do. I got my props. Okay. I'm going to say this on behalf of myself, James, and Jake, and Straight Facts in general. I want to wish everybody a very happy and safe Memorial Day weekend. As Mr. LeBron James would say, he's taking his talents to South Beach. I am taking my talents to the next best place, South Jersey, baby. I'll see you in Landis. Let's get it. Woo!
Oh my! First of all, can I see this?
This is as big as my head. That's about it.
First of all, the
I
camera
put a
can
guinea
see
pig on
this.
that.
For our audio right now, this is what looks to be like a paddleboard, what you train kids with. Jewel, I hope you're not planning on going out into the ocean with this, because you will not make it
I
alive.
do my laps.
Okay. Jake, got something to say at the buzzer?
Yeah, so just shout out to our audience. Next week, we're going to start up doing giveaways. The first giveaway is going to be a pair of sneakers designed by my sister, who does a lot of cool drawings. You can check her out at Veta Studios, VETA Studios. We're going to be giving it away. All you have to do will be comment, tag 3 people, and be following us, and you'll be able to get a pair of shoes customized with your favorite team on them. But more information on that will be on our social media. Check it out.
That's awesome. And your sister does some really, I'm telling y'all want to get at these shoes, because his sister does a really dope job with customizing these shoes. She might have to let me hold a pair of shoes.
Yeah, maybe, man.
Real quick. All I got to say at the buzzer is it is my mom and stepdad's anniversary this weekend, their wedding anniversary. I'm going to help them out and do some babysitting duties as older brother and watch my little brother and sister. Just of all the people out there, if you're able to see just a good, healthy, steady marriage for long years to come, you know the love that goes into it. I look up to these two, and I hope that someday James can find a little love of his own and have a long-lasting marriage like that. But let me hop off my soapbox for a minute. That's all the time we have for this episode of Straight Facts. Big ups to Greg Barron, Kyle Sobieski, and Stat Matt Robinson behind the camera. For my partner Joel Schmitz.
It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun.
To my main man Jake Galley, I'm James Jackson, and these have been the facts.
Straight up.